I'm Mark Zaccaria. This is Common Sense, and we're here today in the offices of Common Cause, the NGO that's a good government agent here in Rhode Island. And we're talking with John Marion, the executive director. And John, just before the break, we were talking a little bit about the upcoming referendum, and I presume it's a referendum on a constitutional amendment to fix the ethics problem. Would you care to comment further?
Yeah, so it's the only constitutional amendment on the ballot. The first question will be the Tiverton Casino question. The remaining questions will all be the bond referenda. So this question 2 is going to be an opportunity for voters to reverse the Supreme Court's decision in 2009 that took away the legislature's full oversight over, the Ethics Commission, full oversight over legislators. And what it will do is it will change 2 parts of the Constitution that the Supreme Court in 2009 said were incompatible, and it will make them compatible with each other. The hope here is that this will settle this issue once and for all, and legislators, once this goes into effect next January, if it passes with more than 50% of the vote, will put the sort of cop back on the beat to make sure legislators are obeying our conflict of interest laws.
So the value argument to voters, the reason they should vote for this, in your opinion, is that it puts that cop back on the beat. Then the legislators can no longer be above or beyond the reach of the Ethics Commission and obviously have to act accordingly.
Yeah, and so, for instance, before 2009, before this was taken away, the Ethics Commission twice sanctioned legislators whose names I think we're all familiar with. In 2003, they sanctioned Gordon Fox for $10,000 for doing work on a bill to help GTEC build its corporate headquarters when he knew he was going to get legal work if that bill went through. And that's using his office to enrich himself.
Personal gain.
Personal gain. And in 2007, it sanctioned Ray Gallison to $6,000 for not disclosing certain income based on a complaint from Patricia Morgan that he had used his office for personal gain. And so right now, the Ethics Commission couldn't sanction somebody the way it did for Gordon Fox. So we think the value of the Ethics Commission is that it's not going to throw these people out of office. That took the U.S. Attorney getting involved. But it is going to signal to voters and citizens that there are problems, that people aren't staying within the lines of ethical conflict.
So it sounds like this is something that people really ought to seriously consider. You've sold me. I'm going to vote for it. The question is, how are you going to communicate that value argument to the rest of the electorate? How are you going to get that word out?
Yeah, so we're doing it in a couple of different ways. One, I'm going to meet before any group that'll have me. So neighborhood associations, Rotary clubs. I think I had 6 speaking engagements last week alone. So we're going to try to reach a lot of people person to person. We're going to be tabling farmers markets throughout the state. As you know, there are many farmers markets. And we'll be doing a larger social media campaign. We'll be launching a website. All that's going to launch in the next couple of weeks as voters get past the primary, get past Labor Day, and start paying attention to this election. So we'll have a pretty robust campaign, including maybe some robocalls, including some canvassing and door knocking.
So it sounds to me like viewers of Common Sense TV can go to the Common Cause website and look at the contact page and get your phone number and probably get John Marion to come down and talk to your group.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to come. We've been going to Woonsocket to Westerly to talk about this, and so we'll go any place in the state and talk to any group.
Excellent. Assuming the amendment passes, what further procedural obstacles are there before it actually takes effect? What has to happen next?
So it actually, nothing has to happen. So as long as 50% plus 1 of the voters approve it this November 8th, it goes into effect next January, I believe January 6th. And so it won't cost anything. The Ethics Commission will just begin hearing complaints against legislators once again.
But the 6th of January is the important date then, so it doesn't happen the minute that the Secretary of State certifies the results.
No.
It is
so constitutional amendments don't take effect until the next year.
Okay.
So
Good.
But there's not, like I said, there's no fiscal impact. It will just happen, and we'll return to the way we were before June of 2009.
Now, one of the things that Common Cause does most effectively, of course, is lobbying. Do you see your organization being an agent for raising and forwarding ethics complaints?
So traditionally, we haven't filed a lot of ethics complaints. Operation Clean Government, which is, I would say, the other notable good government group besides the League of Women Voters in the state, often filed complaints. So they filed a complaint against Senator Irons that resulted in the court case. And they have been less vigorous in doing that. We've stepped up. I think I filed one complaint. And we've looked at whether or not we should be more active in that. It was always nice for us to be the policy group and OCG to be the complaint group. With their not filing as many complaints, we have to make a decision as an organization whether we're going to do that.
But unless I'm mistaken, individual voters could also be the complaint group
yeah,
if they chose.
Ideally, this is a mechanism for citizens who believe that legislators or any public official, including public employees, who have used their office for personal gain, this is an outlet for them to do something. So they can file an ethics complaint. It's open to anyone who wants to do that.
Excellent. So an informed and excited citizenry could do all of that for you, which would leave Common Cause looking for more to do.
Yeah.
So I presume you have some plans for the upcoming legislative session, which of course takes place after this is resolved.
Yeah, so we're here in September, but we're already thinking about January and what we're going to work on. And we've been working on this ethics issue for 7 years, and there's been some pent-up demand to work on other things. Notably, we're looking very far forward at 2020 and the fact that we'll be redistricting again after that next census. And the time to work on redistricting is now, not when it actually is happening, because when it actually happens, the deals are done and the citizens get the short end of the stick. So now is the time to reform the system. And so we'll be looking at a constitutional amendment to have a citizens commission, a public commission, do that redistricting, take the district boundaries out of the hands of the people who benefit from them, the elected officials, and put it into the hands of the voters.
The majority party in most cases.
Well, so ideally, a citizens redistricting commission would be as nonpartisan as we could get it. We see in California, in other places that have had these types of citizens commissions, that they haven't favored parties.
Mm-hmm. And you would think in this day and age of computer science, you could easily make the required number of districts with each having as close to the required number of voters as could be specified, and be as contiguous as possible, so we don't have these meandering, gerrymandered districts that we have today. If you in fact can code that into law, either as an amendment or even just as a general law, far enough in advance of when people's individual futures come into play, the legislators, do you think that you can get something like that to stick?
Yeah, so it's tricky. It's not easy at all, especially in a state that doesn't have initiative or referenda. So citizens can't put this on the ballot. They have to go through the legislature, much like the ethics issue. Who has the greatest self-interest in the outcome? The legislature. So it's not going to be easy.
Well, nothing is ever easy, but after 10 years on separation of powers and 7 years on this, you've proved you can do it. Right now, let's take a break. There will be another segment of Are You Kidding Me? And we'll be back with John Marion.